Hey guys, welcome back to Fantasy Tipped. My name is Julian, and this is the first Drops episode I'm doing in a little while. This is the Drops episode for week 22, the first week of the playoffs for the fantasy hockey season, guys. Before we get started in this episode, guys, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already, guys. And hit the notification bell if you want notifications every single time I put up a video. It's going to be helpful, guys, for this playoff run, to put that notification bell on. That way, every single time I put out a video, you're on it right away, and you know all the best players to grab and to drop for your team. Let's not waste any more time, and let's jump right into the drops list, and let's start with some forwards that you should consider dropping. And first on the list, I did have Brandon Hagel in this spot. He was doing nothing for absolutely forever, it seems like, but finally they decided to wise up and put him on the top line with Kucherov and Point. Obviously, this is more of a coincidence than anything because Stamkos did get injured, so Hagel is getting top line deployment with those two guys finally once again, and he already scored in his first game in that deployment, getting plenty of ice time. So for me, Brandon Hagel is no longer a drop. He is someone that you're going to want to hold because the deployment is very, very good. Start him with confidence. And then my first guy that I actually do have on this list is Tyler Seguin of the Dallas Stars, and he was seen on crutches. That is not a good sign, guys, and I don't think he's going to play for your fantasy playoffs. If you have room on your IR plus, yeah, you might as well throw him on there and just hope and pray that he comes back before the playoffs end. But in all likelihood, guys, he's done. He's not going to play again this season until maybe the playoffs. But Seguin is not someone that you need on your fantasy team anymore, so go ahead and drop him. Ryan O'Reilly, same kind of thing. He just had surgery. He's out for 4 weeks. Get rid of him on your fantasy team. He's not going to be playing for your fantasy playoffs. There's no reason to hold on to him anymore. Lucas Raymond is someone who has heated up a little bit lately, but I don't trust him. He's got 3 points in his last 3 games, yes. But Detroit only plays 2 games this week for one thing. And he's just been someone that's been very, very hard to trust all year. Even if he does go out and score a couple points in those 2 games that he plays, it's still not really worth holding him the whole week because you can grab someone that plays 3 or 4 games and get a lot more out of them in all likelihood. Kevin Hayes of the Philadelphia Flyers was so good for so long for Philadelphia, but he's really kind of fallen off now, not really producing anymore. So at this point, guys, definitely don't hold this guy for your fantasy playoffs because he's not going to help you. Drop him and actually add someone who's producing. At this point, you can't afford to have someone on your team that's just doing nothing. Anthony Duclair is another guy who, despite getting pretty good deployment in Florida and not doing too badly, the problem is Florida only plays a couple of games this week. So it's not worth holding a guy like Duclair over a guy that could play 3 or 4 games, like I was saying with Lucas Raymond. Someone that plays more games is going to be more valuable than Anthony Duclair because Duclair's not exactly that valuable anyway in the first place. Jumping into defensemen now, and first I have Philip Hronek of the Vancouver Canucks, who was recently traded to that team from Detroit. Now, I don't see him having a whole lot of value in Vancouver. Quinn Hughes has got that top power play spot locked up, so Hronek at best will be the power play 2-man, which is fine, but Vancouver doesn't have that much talent that the PP2 is really that great. Now, Hronek is also injured the next couple weeks, so even when he does come back, it might be for your fantasy finals. Just not worth holding in my opinion because he may come back and I don't think he's going to produce for you in your fantasy finals. You're going to be hoping and praying that he comes back and produces for you, but I don't think it's going to happen just given the deployment that he's probably going to get in Vancouver. I think he is a drop, and the plus minus in Vancouver is going to be a lot worse than in Detroit. Owen Power of the Buffalo Sabres, someone who has been a drop for me all year long. He's a good player, but the deployment isn't there. He doesn't get the top power play time because Rasmus Dahlin is getting that deployment. Owen Power will put up a point every now and then, but the peripherals really aren't there, and there's not really enough there to justify having him on your team. If somehow you've held him all year long and it didn't actually make the playoffs, you're going to want to drop him now because he's not someone that's going to help you for your playoff run. Keandre Miller is another guy who had a nice little stretch of hot play for a few weeks there. Never someone I was very high on, and now you're seeing that he's not doing a whole lot of anything. No points. Peripherals are okay at best. He's someone that you're also going to want to drop at this point. Eric Gustafsson of the Toronto Maple Leafs, 32% rostered, is an absolute drop right now. If you still have Eric Gustafsson, get rid of him. He is not getting enough ice time in Toronto. He's not getting top power play time in Toronto. And he's also a healthy scratch every few games or so. So it's just really not something worth worrying about on your team because he's not going to be producing in Toronto anyway because the top power play deployment he was getting in Washington is just not there anymore. Ryan Graves is another guy who has his hot streaks where he puts up some points and puts up some decent peripherals like blocks and stuff, and he still puts up a little bit of peripherals, but honestly, not really worth owning on your team. There's definitely streamers that you can be grabbing for certain nights that are going to be better than Ryan Graves. That's for sure. Jumping into goalies, first I have Cam Talbot, who is injured for the next 3 weeks, which basically means that he's going to miss the entirety of the fantasy playoffs. Could return in time for the last week of the season. So for those of you that have playoffs in the last week of the season, yeah, you can hold them and keep them on your IR, but other than that, it's not really worth hanging on to Cam Talbot. Jack Campbell's another guy not getting a lot of starts right now, not worth having on your team. He's a waste of a roster spot right now. Stuart Skinner's playing better and getting more starts. Martin Jones is another guy. Grubauer started, like 6 games in a row now? Like, Martin Jones, yeah, Grubauer hasn't really played that amazing in his last couple games, so Jones may get a start or 2 next week, but given Martin Jones's play, it's not worth the risk anyway. It's just not worth having this guy on your team unless you're insanely desperate. Semyon Varlamov is not someone that I'm really happy to have on my team right now either. He is a backup goalie, and I would only drop him after the back-to-back because New York Islanders do have a back-to-back set on Tuesday and Wednesday, so he will get one of those starts. So if you do have him on your team, you might as well hold him until that start and then drop him, because he probably won't start again until the end of the following week when the Islanders have another back-to-back. But that's a long time to hold the goalie over a week without him starting. So definitely not worth holding Varlamov after that Tuesday, Wednesday back-to-back set. Then Ukko-Pekka Luukkonen is also worth dropping right now, unfortunately. He did play a really good game the other night, only letting in a couple of goals, still getting the loss. Buffalo is doing something really weird right now and rotating 3 goalies to start. So having any one of these goalies and holding them, just not a great strategy right now, just because you don't know when they're going to start and they're really hard to depend on. So right now, I'm not recommending any Buffalo goalie for you. And that's it, guys. Thank you so much for watching all the way through. If you enjoyed the content, guys, please leave a like and hit that subscribe button. And I'll catch you in the next episode of Fantasy Tip.